What is your favorite? Very creepy fact. I saw a news story on a woman with a rare type of epilepsy that causes her to see everything like a slideshow or a video game that gets 10 FPS. She described watching cars drive by and saying they freeze in place for a moment and then snap into position further down the road over and over. Her entire life is played out in front of her eyes in still frames, and because of that she wears blinders or earmuffs because her senses are constantly contradicting one another and it overwhelms her. I can't imagine how horrifying it would be to experience life like she does. Your eye has approximately the same proteins as an egg white, and both react similarly to hydrochloric acid, which solidifies the usually liquid substances. Cotard's delusion is a rare psychiatric condition, severe cases of which cause the sufferer to wholeheartedly believe they are dead, putrefying, or simply do not exist. Some Cotard's patients refuse to eat, as they do not believe they need to. With one notable patient dying of starvation, another woman once asked to be taken to a morgue, to be with the other dead people. I literally have a neighbor that has this and I never knew what it was called. She constantly explains how she is dead, has no pulse, and how her husband denies her from being buried or sent to the morgue. She sincerely believes she is dead even if proved otherwise. The US is still missing at least 6 nuclear bombs somewhere on the continent from Broken Arrow incidents. One is known to be near a Goldsboro, NCB-52 crash site. It is estimated to be buried in 55 meters of swamp muck. The arming switch was armed, but had detached from the bomb. A second bomb was recovered with 3 of 4 switches armed. Indian followers of the Zoroastrianism don't bury or burn their dead. Instead they leave the bodies in special towers, exposed to the elements to be eaten by vultures. Unfortunately the vultures are now endangered, leaving the bodies to slowly rot. Well, I learned about 20 comments ago that bodies rot 8x faster in open air than in the ground. So the slowly part is debatable. What is my life right now? When a person is electrocuted in the electric chair, they feel everything. They are fully aware of their bodies being fried as it happens in real time. One inmate who survived the first round of electrocution said it tasted like cold peanut butter.
What y'all think about that
Not
video?
good if you're allergic to nuts.
I hope you did.
A human corpse
did, be
decomposes
sure
4
to,
times faster
leave us
in
some
water than in the
feedback.
ground,
Something.
and 8 times faster in open air than in the ground. Sky burial is such a crazy cool concept. When I'm dead, just throw me in the trash and then burn the trash so it gives the bar that nice smoky smell and it goes up in the air and turns into stars. After getting stung by a cone snail, you don't feel the sting for a little bit. There is no anti-venom and it can be lethal. Treatment is basically keeping the victim alive until the venom wears off. That's just like the blue-ringed octopus. Scaphism, the worst way of execution I've ever heard of. The word comes from Greek, which stands for hollowed out. The victim is trapped between 2 boats, fed and covered with milk and honey, which then attracts all kinds of insects and vermin that fester and devours you over a couple of days. Kinda like that rat thing where they heat up the cage or whatever so the rats escape through your body. Exactly. That was a typical medieval torture method which was used even for petty thieves if I remember correctly. This was also shown in an episode of Game of Thrones. In 1844, there was a case of hysteria in a French convent of nuns. One started meowing and after a week all the nuns were meowing harmoniously in the afternoons. It didn't stop until neighbors called soldiers. There was a similar happening in Germany. The entire population of the village danced and partied themselves to death. That was likely more due to mold in the grain they used to make bread. They were literally tripping their faces off constantly. The children's story of the Pied Piper of Hamelin was based on a real event. Hamelin town records start with this event. The earliest written record is from the town chronicles in an entry from 1384 which states, "It is 100 years since our children left. No one know what or who took the children, but there's records of the entire town's children being taken." I actually did some research into this. Historians believe the children were not taken as in kidnapped, no mysterious man grabbed all the children and took off. Instead, an illness probably spread which mostly impacted children, who have a weaker immune system and are not as strong. The illness probably killed most, if not all, of the children. The island of Okunoshima in the inland sea of Japan is known for two reputable things. 1. It's named Rabbit Island because of the overabundance of wild rabbits, and 2. The island has World War II ruins of a chemical weapons factory, creating poison like mustard gas in its attacks on China. So vital was its secrecy to the Japanese government that they tried to wipe its location off maps. There is a rare genetic disease called fatal familial insomnia where over the course of months you literally cannot go or be put to sleep no matter what you take or what you do. The symptoms get progressively worse until finally you stay awake watching yourself go insane until you die from exhaustion. There is a guy by the name of Ricard Seogyan who documented this genetic disease on YouTube, and with each video you can tell his mental state gets worse and worse. It eventually gets so bad that his last videos are just weird conspiracy theories and, as expected from a disease with no cure, he sadly passed away before he started suffering from it, since it can sit in your genetic code for years without you noticing. He was an artist. May he rest in peace. Probably should be clarified that while the symptoms and mental state could be similar, Seogyan clarified in the video description of his first video regarding his insomnia that he did not have fatal familial insomnia, but rather, it was a side effect from taking a specific antibiotic that created a neurotoxic reaction resulting in his inability to sleep. When you happen to be murdered, there is only an about 40% chance that your murderer will be found and punished. If given access to it, butterflies will happily drink blood. They'll also drink my pint if unguarded. Cheeky buggers. Your insides are constantly moving around and stuff. I hate this, but it's my favorite for that reason. I tried on a proper tight corset once. When I took it off I could feel my insides slide back down out of my rib cage. It happens during pregnancy too. All your organs shift to accommodate a baby. The human brain continues to give off electrical signals for 20 to 40 seconds after death. This is why sometimes people move right after they die. We took my mom off life support and held her hands as she passed. She had been unconscious for days at that point, unmoving. When she died, her whole body moved like she was having a seizure, which was really upsetting. It's just the last bit of electricity in your brain going out. Also, hearing is the last sense to leave. So if you are with someone who is dying, please keep talking to them. The bodies of the sailors who died on the Edmund Fitzgerald are still down there, almost perfectly preserved, due to the water at that depth being just barely above freezing. Divers who have explored the wreckage have seen their bodies frozen in place to parts of the ship, and have come back reporting that they feel as if they were being followed during their time underwater. Photos were taken, but per the request of the crew's family, they have never been released to the public. About 3,000 people disappear every year in the US and are never found again. This is really scary and sad. One of my worst fears. I have moderate, not terrible OCD. One of the most common images I have is someone from my life, almost always a woman family member, GF, etc., being kidnapped. Well, people searching for them after they go missing. Not the abduction itself. PS obsessive type. Not compulsive or mixed. And OCD isn't what PPL think it is usually. They're usually thinking of obsessive compulsive personality disorder. Essentially what I have is intrusive thoughts I can't stop from having when they occur. I've tried explaining it, but from the reactions I get, I'd imagine it's like explaining color to the blind. Anesthesia awareness exists. Being conscious during surgery is an actual experience people have. Yeah, I've heard of this. My understanding is that it is caused by the body reacting strangely to the drug, so you regain consciousness and feeling, but remain paralyzed, leaving you to feel the pain of a surgery and not be able to do anything about it. Anglerfish. When anglerfish mates, the male literally deforms its body and fuses with the female, then they live together for the rest of their lives. Somewhat recently, 2012, scientists discovered over 1,400 new species of bacteria living in the belly button. Everyone's belly button ecology is unique. Add it to the fingerprints and snowflakes list. In that same study, one volunteer's belly button harbored bacteria strands that had only ever been found in soil from Japan, where this man has never been. There was a man from France, named Terrare, 1772 to 1798, who couldn't stop eating. By the time he was 17, his parents kicked him out. He was eating his own body weight in food daily at the time. When he enlisted in the army rations just couldn't satisfy him. Often, he would sneak out at night and search for offal in the garbage and the gutters. He was hospitalized. Doctors trying to find a cure, but at night he would raid the morgue. Scientists unable to stop his ability to eat almost anything began to study it. They'd feed him such random things as eels he'd swallow whole, lizards, a kitten and puppies, all of which he ate alive. When a 14-month-old baby disappeared, he was chased from the hospital by an angry mob. He later died of tuberculosis. It's estimated that there is around 25 to 50 active serial killers in the US. That seems kinda low. It's hard not to get caught nowadays with cameras everywhere and DNA technology being at where it is now. The world today is not an easy place for serial killers to thrive in as it was in the 70s and 80s. The last use of a guillotine in France was the same year the first Star Wars movie premiered. 1977. But honestly, if you had the choice to get killed by a boring needle or a majestic guillotine, of all the execution techniques it seems like it would be the least painful, most idiot-proof.